Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. This week's guest setlist curator is Doyle from Nightswimming, a music blog hosted on Substack. Nightswimming has a brilliant tagline, a blog about new music for kids who grew up with VH1 and iPod shuffles. It features interviews, reviews, playlists, and of course, a Grateful Dead show of the week. Doyle recently sat down with folk rocker Kevin Morby to discuss his new album. I linked that thoughtful, illuminating interview in the show notes. Last but certainly not least, Doyle was the first ever winner of Guest of the Year. If you know your Guest of the Year lore, he bested Kyle, and then Kyle came back the following week and beat him. Kyle eventually lost to King Luke, who barely edged out 18-year-old Riley, who's now like 35. So Doyle is firmly part of Guest of the Year history books, and it's a pleasure to welcome him back to the show. Welcome, Doyle.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me back. It's great to be back.
All right, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year the performance is from. Contestants who are all on a video conference together can message in their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest off is eliminated. The final two contestants will hear 3 tracks, and whoever's the least number of years off in aggregate wins and continues on to next week. Our 3-time returning champ Charles is here, and we'll meet the rest of the Deadheads in a moment, but first, without further ado, the Grateful Dead.
Okay, the guesses are in. It was Big River at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri on July 1st, 1978. That was taped by the great Bob Wagner. Doyle, I happen to know that's a hometown show. Tell me about it.
Yes, this was part of Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnic show that he would do. Willie currently does the Outlaw something or others. The tour that he's doing with like Bob Dylan and Waxahachie and all those folks all across like the Midwest and the South. Back in the 70s, he used to do the 4th of July picnic series. And like late June, early July, he would take this show around the same regions and play these huge stadium shows. This was Willie, Waylon Jennings, Jerry Jeff Walker, and the Dead. And apparently they went on super late. Which is maybe not surprising for anyone of that era. You could hear some whistles and some clapping, which is always fun on a heater Big River like that.
Nightswimming, which I love, doesn't have like a 10-point scale or even a 5-star scale. You just either really recommend an album, you say it's worth a listen, or you don't mention it at all. Why is that the right rubric for Nightswimming?
Well, I think really the whole thing was born out of wanting to write in a formal way and put something out, but not have it be music criticism. I'm not really interested in writing about things that I didn't like or things that I thought weren't successful from what an artist did. I'm really only interested in what I think is good and interesting and fun. And like any good creative pursuit, it's mostly self-centered. I want to tell people what I like and what I think is good, and maybe you'll think it's good too. So that's why instead of doing stars and mucking around with the numbers and statistics of it all, it's just, here's an album I highly recommend from last week, and here's an album that's worth a listen from last week. This one, the first one is something that many people can like. It's great. It's one of my favorite albums that came out last week, and worth a listen is like maybe it's a little offbeat, a little, interesting or experimental or a little more esoteric.
How often are you unsure if you like an album?
Very often. Friday's the big day to like release an album. Every Friday I'll pull 15, 20 albums into a playlist, and over that following weekend I'll listen to them, and it usually only takes me about 3 tracks before I decide if I like something or not, and then from there it's just kind of, do I think I have something to say about this album? There's things that obviously stick out right away that are like amazing albums that really affect me, but sometimes I hear something I really like, but I'm like, I don't know what I would say about this. Maybe that hasn't already been said, or it's just a little bit out of my wheelhouse.
Do you self-impose an embargo on looking at other people's reviews before you decide?
What you think of an album?
No, I'm a huge fraud. I absolutely look at what other folks are saying just to kind of see if anyone else kind of had the same thought about XYZ. You can also get a lot of good lore and background. Well, one of the reasons I started Nightswimming is because between the ages of like 18 and 26, I was pretty much exclusively listening to like Steely Dan and the Dead. So I kind of fell out of fashion with what was cool and what was current. So a lot of bands that are putting things out, if they're on their second or third or fourth album right now, I missed albums 1 through 3 or 1 through 2. So I don't know who the hell these people are sometimes. And it's really helpful to go to some of these other publications or other small writers on Substack and maybe get like a lore dump of, the story of these bands.
Well, as a kick in Big River, especially as an odd, it was difficult. And yeah, Charles, our returning champ, 3-time returning champ, sorry, Charles, guessed 1975. He was 3 years off. And Nick, who's 26 from Libertyville, Illinois, guessed 81. He was 3 years off. They're both on in the next round. Charles, was 75 a hedge?
100%. I mean, so I heard it. I heard Keith, I'm like, all right, that's the 70s. And I couldn't tell if it was 2 drummers or not. Like it was a, tom-tom kind of tough beat there, but it was like Billy and Mickey were doing the same thing. So I was like, okay, it's the 70s. It's somewhere between 73 and 70, 78. So I went right in the middle with 75.
That's how you end up being a 3-time champ, playing the game.
Sometimes you got to play the game. Yeah.
Way to go, Charles. You're on the next round. As I said, Nick is 26 from Libertyville, Illinois. Nick, you guessed 81.
Yeah, so unlike Charles, I did not hear keys at all. Don't know what was going on, so I was totally at a loss there. That's, of course, a big thing to pin your guess on. So after that, just things I'm thinking about. Heard Jerry playing very, very fast. Know that can be kind of an 81 thing. And even though I did hear some of that fanning and like, oh, that's classic 78, but stick with your gut. I was kind of thinking 81 the whole way, so I trusted it, and thankfully I wasn't too far off.
Way to go, Nick. Luke is 25 from Springfield, Ohio. He guessed 1974. You're on in the next round, Luke. Tell me about 74.
Yeah, so I originally wrote down 73, but like Charles said, I'm like, do I hear 2 drummers there? And I thought I did, but ended up guessing 74 because I just couldn't figure it out. I thought I kind of heard a little bit of wall sound in there, but it was between 74 and 78, and my gut told me 74.
Way to go. You're on in the next round. And Mark is 41 from Lubbock, Texas. He guessed 1971. That's probably what I would have guessed, to be honest. Mark, why 71?
Oh, tears I'm going to cry are going to flood you. Yeah, because it felt like early 70s magic, and those old cowboy songs that Bob loves so much. I too, like Nick was struggling to find the keys, and I'm thinking I can hear a piano just a tiny bit. Is Keith new? That was kind of where my head was at. It was fast. Now, what should have tipped me for late 70s was the roar of the crowd, right? Because that was a big crowd, and it was nice to hear. So that's where I landed at 71. But lovely pull. That was fun.
Something about The Dead playing Big River to a stadium in the dead of night is weird. Feels like a first set daytime song.
It was also like, this is courtesy of jerrybase.com and the Institute for Jerry Garcia Studies. The feels like temperature was 102.4 degrees that day. So I imagine, and I know Missouri, I know the Kansas City summer, and I bet it was sticky and swampy out there. I think that's the tricky thing about a Big River is they played it in so many different years, and they really didn't put a whole lot of a twist on it. So depending on how they were feeling that day, they could be bringing some 71 energy in 1978, you know?
There you go. Mark, how'd you get into the Dead?
It came to me in drips and drabs. My parents weren't really into the Dead, but they are of that baby boomer generation. I listened to a lot of their music, Hendrix and Creedence and stuff like that. I think I found the Grateful Dead through Napster and LimeWire. I'm a little too young to be a tape trader. And went into a pizza shop and it's like, hey, man, what's this? It's like, oh, it's China Cat Sunflower. What? Crazy. There was kind of two incidents that really, really hooked me. I was definitely listening to a lot of classic rock radio when I was a kid. And the other one, I heard those first two notes on the ad from St. Stephen, right? And that was the other ones in 2002. I had to go at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, or what I think they're calling the Mellon Arena. It's something different now, but I didn't even appreciate what I was seeing. Robert Hunter played at the set break, which was very special. I didn't know who he was, but I had a great time, and I was maybe about 17 at the time. I went out to the parking lot and found my car totally dead, and I desperately asking these hippies for jumper cables, and this fella comes out and he catches me. Finally, it took me a while to find somebody. An older gentleman came out, and he led me across this giant parking lot. I would love to have hung out at the lot scene, but I needed to get home. And so I'm walking by this scene that I'm discovering as a young person. We finally get to his car, and he looks across this ocean of automobiles and hands me his jumper cables and says, hey, man, keep them. And I got his name and address. Shout out Richard B. of Bethesda, Maryland. I'll never forget you, buddy. I mailed him a set of jumper cables back, and because without him, I wouldn't have gotten home. So after that, I really loved the community, and what really got me, I think, was stepping out Grateful Dead 72, right? Those English shows, that Dark Star at Wembley was really fantastic. And I remember listening to that the day before college that I started, and just feeling like actually meditating and feeling disembodied in this sonic space. It really was lovely. So that's how it got a hold of me, and I've never really been quite the same since.
Do you do any broadcasting? You have a voice for broadcasting.
Why, thank you. No. I do online school, and I did have a Twitch channel very briefly, which was a fun little hobby. But no, I don't do anything presently. I'm open.
What are you going to online school for?
I'm a law student.
What made you want to get a law degree?
Oh, money. Pretty much money. A lot of times in my day-to-day work, I would have to tell people, like, I can't help you with that. I'm not a lawyer, right? There's certain things that they can do that I wasn't able to do. I'm not going to practice it without a license, so I have to go and do that. It is strictly a career thing. I love justice just as much as the next person, but I love a lot of things, and I don't make a career out of it. I love the Grateful Dead. I wish I could make a career out of that.
Well, if you ever want to make money on the side, you could definitely go into broadcasting. So thank you for coming on Guest of the Year.
It was my pleasure. Happy to do it.
Luke, Nick, and our 3-time returning champ Charles are on in the next round. Let's hear Doyle's next pick. Okay, the guesses are in. That was Cryptical Envelopment at Starlight Theater in Kansas City on September 3rd, 1985. Another Kansas City show, Doyle. Maybe not the most assured Cryptical I've ever heard. Can you tell us about it?
In fact, the very last Cryptical ever played.
Why?
I I wanted to kind of pick a tricky one, and I wanted to represent another Kansas City venue, and I just thought it was funny to put a 1985 performance of Cryptical Envelopment in there. But the Starlight is an outstanding venue. It's where they used to do a lot of plays and musicals almost exclusively. And then in the mid-'80s, it became the Dead's Kansas City home. They played there in 85 and 86, I believe, and they played in Kansas City for the last time in 86.
You just did a great interview with folk indie rocker Kevin Morby, and his latest album, Little Wide Open's about the Midwest, pretty overtly.
Yep. So you got to hear the album early, and we were chatting, and you told me that everyone's going to like the album. And you were right. It's commercially successful. It's critically acclaimed. How did you know everyone was going to like it? What did you hear?
I just felt kind of an energy about it. I've been a Kevin fan for years, and I think he's one of those guys that just gets better with every album. I really liked This Is a Photograph from 2022, and I just think he is one of those guys who really does what he wants and makes the music he wants to make. I think this one has a good mix of the Kevin folk troubadour acoustic kind of stuff and also some downright rockers. The song 100,000 is like, if you're a fan of Television, the band, you'll love 100,000 by Kevin Morby. So it's a good mix of what he does, and I think it you can feel the love in the lyrics because he has such a fondness and a passion for the Midwest, specifically Kansas City, being a Kansas City guy himself. The other element is that it was produced by Aaron Dessner, who famously produced Taylor Swift's Folklore and Evermore and has worked with Ed Sheeran. And, we could go on and on about Aaron Dessner from The National and who he's worked with. But he has a real knack for understanding what makes a song appealing. And he, in this album, specifically took Kevin's beautiful words and his great musical ideas and turned them into something that I think has a really wide appeal.
I feel like the two biggest producers right now are like Jack Antonoff and Aaron Dessner. Why do you think these indie rockers are producing so many mainstream albums?
I couldn't say. I'm sure they're good guys to work with, and I think that's a big part of it. The more I meet people in the music industry, the more I learn that, like, the assholes don't always get that far. Morrissey had a nice career for himself, but now he's pretty much a pariah to everyone. But I think they're probably good guys to work with, and I do think they are probably, like many people on this call, many people listening to this podcast, they are musical omnivores. I think those guys probably came up listening to not only indie rock and pop, but also R&B and soul and jazz and country and all those sorts of things. And, what I've found is I really respect and appreciate the music of someone who I can tell has a varied musical background. So I think those guys really, took in a lot, consumed a lot of different types of music. And I can't speak personally, but I would bet they're a bit scientific about it. A hit song has certain milestones, certain keystones that you want to hit. And I think those guys are good at knowing what sounds to put where.
Thank you, Doyle. It was a really interesting pick. Nick and Luke both got it 85, and our 3-time champ Charles guessed 84. So we're going to have a new champ of guest of the year. But Nick, you're on to the finals. Why 85?
So I'm going to curse myself by saying I'm not a massive 83 to 85 listener, but in the listening I have done, did know that they brought back Cryptical Envelopment, and that's it for the other one. So as soon as I heard that, knew had to go 85, and yeah.
Fucking A. There you go. And Luke also 85.
Yeah, so I immediately wrote down 82 to 86 because it just kind of had that sound. Definitely thought I heard Brent in there. And then after that, I just fingers crossed that I hear Jerry, and that's kind of my give for what year it kind of is in the 80s, and how healthy he's sounding. So he obviously didn't sound the best, but still rocked. And so the guy wanted to say 86, but I hedged with 85, and I'm very happy.
Way to go, Luke. You're on to the finals. Charles, congratulations. Incredible run. 1 year off on an 85 cryptical. Worst ways to go out. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of cool. I didn't realize they brought Cryptical back in the 80s, so that was just cool to hear that. I mean, I knew it was 80s, obviously it wasn't a late 60s Cryptical. And Jerry's voice was pretty reedy, pretty thin there, struggling a bit. The sound quality from 83 to 85, 86 is kind of digital. And so I knew it was anywhere between 83 to 86. I should have guessed 85 because they brought out a whole bunch of new songs in 85 in general, like covers, bringing back older stuff. But anyway, I went with 84 and I was just off. So
great run, Charles. I really appreciate you coming on guest here. It's been a total pleasure having you.
Yeah, thanks, man. I've had a blast doing this. It's a fantastic idea you have, Mike, and good luck to whoever wins. Hopefully you get to have a streak like I did.
It's not easy to do. Luke and Nick are on the finals. 3 tracks of Doyle's choosing. Whoever is least number of years off in aggregate wins. There are more tracks if an overtime is necessary. Let's hear the first song of the finals. Peggy O at Englishtown, New Jersey, the Raceway Park on September 3rd, 1977. Doyle, is there a better Peggy O?
You could give 30 answers to that question and you'd be right 30 times. The debate is so long about how to introduce the Grateful Dead to someone who's not in the know. I think a Peggy O like that outside you're driving around, windows down, and you're on the front porch with the sunset. I mean, I'm dead serious. I had tears in my eyes when they were when you were playing that. It's just so gorgeous, and specifically this era of them. Same thing with this English Town show. If you ask me 100 days in a row what my favorite Dead show is, I'll give you 100 different answers, or maybe I'll give you 90 different answers, and 10 times I say it's this English Town show. It's really up there for me. It's like cool because that 77 era, especially May 77 and through the summer, they were playing like colleges and small arenas, and then this huge English Town show. It was like an estimated like 150, 175,000 people at this show. You could just hear how huge it is, and those kind of tight compositions they were playing in 77 like really blow up in this venue. And you could play any track from this show, and it's really outstanding.
Well, that was beautiful, and these guys recognized as much. They both get 77. Luke, any doubt?
Honestly, I thought it was 79 for a while, and then I heard Keith kind of come in, like maybe 2/3 the way in there, and oh my god, it's got to be 77. I live in New Jersey now, and I don't think I've heard anyone reference English Town. But if I say English Town to any Deadhead, they're just like, "Oh, that's the greatest thing ever." So it's such a great show. The 40-minute "He's Gone and the Not Fade Away," it's perfect. I need nothing else.
They also apparently, the lore is that they hadn't played Truckin' since 1975, and they had to go backstage and like relearn how to play Truckin' with each other, like Mickey and Bill on the practice pads, like figuring out how to drop into it from Not Fade Away. Crazy. Wow.
Teleprompter for Bob.
Yeah.
Nick, also 77.
Yeah, so for me hearing that, I was between 77 and 78, and two things just for whatever reason feel like I've listened to a lot of 78 Peggios for some reason or another. Not a bad thing to do, but for whatever reason that's the case, and it just didn't sound like that. But the big thing for me was listening to Jerry's guitar, trying to figure out if it was Wolf or the Bean, and it sounded a little bit more ethereal and light and not as raw as Wolf, so thought it was the Bean and had to go with 77, of course.
Nick, how did you get into the Dead?
So interesting question. I have a couple family members that were fans, so always kind of heard Grateful Dead and whatnot. And my first introduction was like, all right, let me figure out what this is about after being like a Beatles fan and the Who fan growing up. I've heard about the Grateful Dead. Let me check it out. So this is dating myself, but not dating myself. I went to iTunes and listened to a couple 30-second previews of some of the albums. I'm like, oh, I always like bands' early albums. So let me do that. And of course, 30 seconds of whatever off of Oxa Moxa or Anthem of the Sun didn't necessarily land with an early high schooler. So like, all right, cool, move on, keep going. And then a couple of years later, got into it, started listening to some of the bigger hits, like Friend of the Devil. But what really sealed it for me, Live Dead. I mean, is there anything like that in the world? So coming to that totally new. It's like, goodness, I've felt like I've been looking for something like this, especially being a rock fan. And then I played I played saxophone in high school and band and did jazz band. So it was like, oh, there's like this sort of jazz going on with this rock that I like. And it's, just unlike anything I'd ever heard. So I was on the bus and hooked from there on.
So you must appreciate the Marsalis sit-ins.
For sure. I pale in comparison and haven't even tried practicing with any of it, but yeah, no, I definitely get the Without a Net vinyl gets a lot of playing in my catalog.
When you listen to that, what are you paying attention to?
Yeah, so honestly, just in general, it's how the heck he does it, because for me, I'm more of a classically trained musician in the sense like I need sheet music to read, and like I can't necessarily improv off the top of my head. So for Branford to come in totally blind and all that, of course, like, what key the song is and like you have the basic roadmap there just from hearing a couple songs. But like, as far as playing off the top of my head and picking up stuff by ear, that's not necessarily my strong suit. So hats off to all the people that can do that.
But if someone threw you on stage during a Dead & Co show and they're playing Eyes of the World, how would you approach complimenting the other players?
That's a very good question because, I mean, you try to listen and fill in the spaces, but everybody's kind of doing that already. So I would probably just pick up some of the key themes, whether it's melodic or something like that, and just sort of riff on it until I got a clear, whether it was nod from the band or something like that to go a little further.
Thank you, Nick. You
Yeah.
have 0. Luke has 0. We have 2 more songs. Let's hear Doyle's next pick. So that was a Lost Sailor at Glen Falls Civic Center in Glen Falls, New York on August 31st, 1979. Early Lost Sailor, Doyle. Tell us about that one.
In fact, the very first Lost Sailor Saint of Circumstance pairing, and the first show they ever played Saint of Circumstance. I chose this one. I wanted to be a little tricky again. Lost Sailor is squarely like an 80, 81, 82 song for me. And I didn't even realize that they had played it as early as late 79. But I think it's an underrated Bob song. People talk about the classic pairings. China Cat, Sunflower, I Know You Rider, Eyes of the World, Estimated Profit. But you got to go pretty far down the list before people start talking about Lost Sailor, Saint of Circumstance. But it's one of my favorites. It's a great Bobby ballad. It's him at his most wistful. Where's the dog star? Where's the moon? It's really gorgeous.
Dynamite pick. And Nick was closer. He guessed 1980. Luke guessed 1981. So going into the third and final track, Nick is 1 year off. Luke is 2 years off. Nick, 1980.
Yeah, so like you said, Mike, I mean, this is a staple of the early 80s, so including 79 there. And other than that, just hearing it, this was purely off of vibes for me and just kind of gut instinct. Felt very reminiscent of Dead Ahead, which we've all seen the Radio City Music Hall video and all that. And so went 80, even though there's a part of me itching to guess 1981, like you, Luke, but just kind of played the game, hedged my bets, stuck with my gut, went with 80 and panned out.
Way to go. And Luke, 81.
All my notes say is post 79, and it kind of felt kind of big. And I wanted to say like an 88, but Bobby's voice still felt young, and his guitar tone hasn't changed that much from like the 70s compared to what it was kind of in like 87 to 90. Try to stick out maybe more in the mix, but yeah, just happy I was within like 5, and it's not over.
Luke, how'd you get into the Dead?
Yeah, so like most people, my mom went to a few shows in the 90s. She was a Deadhead. And growing up, she always explained it to me as like, well, you know, they started as a psychedelic, then they went to country, and then they went to rock. And I was very Grateful Dead, and I always thought it was like confused them and Megadeth. So I thought they were heavy metal. But I remember listening to, we went to a golf tournament in 2018, and I think the only song we listened to the whole week was Throwing Stones. And then remember in 2019, sitting in Ronald Reagan Airport in DC, listened to Grateful Dead Essentials. I'm like, all right, I like this. And then COVID happened, and I just dove head in and haven't looked back since. Kind of like what Mark said, my life changed pretty much in early 2020. Listened to Europe 72.
So it coincided with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So you had more time inside, and how did you go through the endless amount of material?
So until 2 years ago, I pursued professional golf, and so I just had unlimited time on the golf course, and I would just listen to show after show. Started off with Europe 72, Cornell, and then slowly branched out. And now Now I don't stray at all. So when Doyle's explaining the new albums and new artists, I'm like, I don't know.
Did listening to the Dead affect your play either positively or negatively?
It helped for sure. A lot of times I'd be so frustrated and just get Road Jimmy going or the wheel. And those always help calm me down, but I would say it helped me reach flow state a lot quicker.
Were you allowed to listen to the shows while you competed?
Not during college events, but I listened to enough of, I can't tell you how many times Jack Straw was stuck in my head during a day.
I'm imagining you trying to putt on like minute 17 of a 26-minute playing in the band when they're just like squeaking each other's instruments around.
Yeah. Sometimes when it's a bad day, that's all you hear in your head.
So you said that until recently, you were pursuing professional golf. When did you decide I'm no longer going to pursue this professionally? What made you decide that?
Early, pretty much 2 years ago now, probably May of 2024, I realized that it's no guaranteed money, and budgeting $80,000 a year for no guaranteed money wasn't my thing. And I had pretty high performance anxiety, which the Dead helped with a little bit, but I just didn't improve how I wanted to my grad year of college, and decided, hey, maybe I'll go on Dead tour or Fish tour instead. So I got off that bus and full time on this bus.
How often do you play golf just recreationally?
I'm lucky to get 20 rounds in a year now with work. Still could play a decent amount.
So not competing, are you able to enjoy the game as much?
Oh, it's so much more fun. Played with a buddy
really?
yesterday. Yeah, played with a buddy yesterday, and the whole day we talked about golf and Grateful Dead / Fish, and it was a great 5 hours flew by. It was awesome.
Since you stopped practicing all the time, how much has your game gotten worse, or has it gotten worse?
I definitely have to be a little more attentive when I do get to practice, but I would say it's barely gotten worse. It's stayed the same.
What do you deduce from that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly a mystery. Me and my performance coach don't know what's going on with that, but
Why
we
you're
just talk
still
ma-
like really good? Like,
yeah, it's
huh.
so mystery.
I know a lot of baseball players, really high level baseball players that can't stand watching baseball. Do you enjoy watching golf?
No, but I would say it's mostly because it's the announcers, and they're brutal. They're trying to make more out of what golf actually is, and they try to put more drama in things so people stay tuned in on a Saturday or Sunday, because at the end of the day, it's just you're watching rich guys walk around on grass. So they just have to make it sound interesting. Like, I think golf's really interesting. It's all I think about is golf and Grateful Dead, but it's napping TV, to be real.
Luke, thanks for withstanding my barrage. That's really interesting.
No worries.
So you have 2 years off. You need to make up 1 year on Nick in this third and possibly final track of Doyle's choosing. Let's hear it. The guesses are in. Eyes of the World, a Giant Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey on June 17th, 1991. Doyle, there's the eyes.
This might be the eyes, by the way. This is show opener. show opener. You talked about in the intro in Nightswimming, I have a mostly weekly column, Grateful Dead Show of the Week. And starting this month in June, I'm going to be doing a bit of a deep dive on 1991, specifically June of 1991. This is the Bruce Hornsby tour. Bruce played with them. He filled in a bit in 92 and a couple times in 93, but 91 was the tour where he was like with them for the whole summer tour. And I just think it's so special. People talk about 77 and 74 and 89, and I'm really trying to give 91 its due. I think it was such a special tour. I think the jamming that Jerry and Bruce got into together, Bruce's straight piano, just hammering grand piano, and Jerry kind of following him, led to some really beautiful places. None really more beautiful than that June 17th, 1991 at Giant Stadium, Eyes of the World. That's one, again, to put on the front porch. I saw as we were listening to it, Mark just kind of leaned back in his chair and put his head back and closed his eyes and was letting it wash over him. And that is the proper way to take in that Eyes of the World, for sure.
The Dead shows are only one small part of Nightswimming. You are prolific. And I'm wondering, as you've started this venture, have you had to change your lifestyle in order to accommodate that much really high level writing?
In a way, yes. Anybody who does any sort of writing, or really anyone who does any sort of deadline-based creative pursuit, knows that you try to get some done ahead of time, but sometimes you need the deadline to inspire you. So, like I said, I do a lot of, I pull 20 albums into a playlist every Friday and listen to them over the course of the weekend. And I try to whittle down to 2 or 3 that I think I have something to say about. And I do my writing throughout the weekend and the week, but ultimately I do spend a lot of Wednesday nights here in this very room, at this very desk, on this very computer, finishing things up.
We already got how you got into the Dead in episode 1, but I'm wondering, because you mentioned it, when you decided I need to expand beyond the Dead, I can't just listen to the Dead, what precipitated that epiphany?
I was always a big fan of, when I was a kid, my mom paid for a subscription for me to Entertainment Weekly. Not one of the cool magazines like Rolling Stone or something like that, but Entertainment Weekly, which is like something you read at the doctor's office. But they would always do the end of year list of like best movies, best books, best albums. And so that's kind of what got me back into understanding what was current. Was I saw an end of year list, and I guess it was 2023. And in 2024, I was like, man, I really would like to be able to make my own list. And I just kind of marinated on that thought until June, when I thought, well, why don't I do a best of the year so far? Because a lot of these publications in June will do, like Stereo Gum just ran theirs. I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, you'll see a lot of these publications do like best of the year so far. So the first official issue of Nightswimming is my best of the year 2024 so far. And it was like 15 of the best albums from that year. So it was really, again, a self-centered pursuit, wanting to be a part of the conversation.
Well, it's incredibly high level writing and thinking. Nightswimming, it's in the show links. I really appreciate what you're doing, Doyle.
Well, I appreciate that. And we also have, I do playlists for basically everything I have written about so far in the year. And those are always linked in the issue. So you could go in right now. We're at 38 tracks, which means I've written about 38 new albums that have come out this year so far. And so you can listen to the playlist, shuffle it, hear something you like, go in and listen to that whole album.
That's awesome. It's a really smart way to do it. Like I said, brilliant curating. Nick was 1 year off and Luke was 1 year off. Nick guessed 92, Luke guessed 90. They were both 1 year off, which means Nick wins 2-3. Congratulations, Nick. New champ of Guess the Year. Luke, great playing. Clearly as tight as it can be. Take it away, Nick. 1992.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So for me, I heard when I first heard it, piano, everything led me to think post Brent. So where from there do we go? Some strong Jerry playing. And so for me, that's kind of 91 to 93. I was leaning 91, but for whatever reason, I was also feeling strongly for 93. So decided to hedge my bets for 92. And shout out to my wife. She was quizzing me in the car this weekend on a drive. And for whatever reason, she'd play like 94, 93 to 70s, and then hit me with like 5 or 6 92s in a row. So right before this, she's like, when in doubt, 92. So shout out Amy.
Shout out Amy. Good job. Luke, great run. 1990.
Yeah, so I heard Phil really loud initially, and then I wrote down Vince or Brent. Couldn't really tell. I had 91 typed for a little bit, and then I thought I heard. I'm like, I'm listening. I hear one keys, and then I hear another keys. I'm like, oh, that must be Bruce. So couldn't remember. I knew he played. I guess it was accordion when he maybe sat in when Brent was still playing. And I didn't think about that. What was my gut? Oh well, it was fun.
Way to go, Luke. That was a really impressive run. And Nick, congratulations on the victory. Charles and Mark, appreciate you guys both. All of Charles's musical information is in the show notes as well. He's a fantastic guitarist, as is Nightswimming and that Kevin Morby interview, which I really recommend everyone check out. It's, even if you don't even know who Kevin Morby is, just the way you structured that interview, Doyle, with the very conversational, and you presented records that you thought invoked his new album. It was just really, really high level shit. So appreciate it, you coming on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on, and it's great to be back.
Thanks so much for listening. Thank you again, Doyle, for coming on and curating an amazing set list. His Nightswimming Instagram is in the show notes, as is the URL to the Nightswimming blog. If you want to be a contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at info@guesstheyear.net. Shout out to Dylan, James, and Jack for helping out behind the scenes. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recording made this show possible. Congratulations, Nick, on being the new champ of Guess the Year. And to other contestants, thanks for playing. And remember, it's all one song anyway.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night. And I bid you good night, good night, good night.